How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between. Jackie Boy's got a sports show, and you are tuning into that sports show. Hope y'all had a good weekend. Hope your teams won in every sport. I was about to say every sense of sport, but that doesn't really make any sense. Tuning in this week, we got a little NBA trade news to go along with the Damian Lillard saga that is going on. And we're going to get into some college football, some NFL football. And for my prediction podcast coming out on Thursday, I will cover the World Series, which is starting up this weekend, I believe. That's it. Let's just get straight into it. So, the Celtics picked up Drew Holiday the Blazers picked up Drew Holiday and then shipped him straight off to the Celtics, which everybody was expecting the Blazers just to turn around and ship off Drew Holiday because they didn't really need another guard. And they shipped him off to the Celtics for Malcolm Brogdon, Robert Williams, a 2024 first-round pick, which came from the Golden State Warriors, and a 2029 unprotected first-round pick from the Celtics. And let me say this. Am I missing something? That seems like a lot. That seems like too much for an aging Marcus Smart. Let's just be honest here. I think I would take Marcus Smart over Drew Holiday right now. And you may call me wild for that, but Marcus Smart is younger and does pretty much everything Drew Holiday does. I just think Drew Holiday is maybe a little bit better of a shooter. But outside of that, Drew Holiday is just an older Marcus Smart, in which I consider an older and worse Marcus Smart. And he gave up 2 first-round picks, one in 2024 and one in 2029, and Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon. That just seems a bit extreme to me. Tweet at me at JJuster615 or comment on one of my videos on TikTok at JackieBoySports or comment on the video on YouTube. Jackie's got a sports show on YouTube, and let me know if I'm being dumb for that. I just think that's too much of an overpay, and it feels like the Celtics are like, oh, this is the piece that's going to get us to the finals. No, it's not. And you lost 2 important pieces, in my opinion, in Robert Williams and Grant Williams, and now you lost Malcolm Brogdon, and now you're just... I don't know what the Celtics are doing. I don't like this move. I don't like this move. Let's move on to college football. I'll go over my, predictions and really some of the games in my prediction show, because everything I expected to happen pretty much happened outside of Auburn and Georgia, which we will get to. So let's go over the college football AP top 10. I'm not going to go over the entire top 25, but let's just go over the top 10 after this weekend. So 1, they had Georgia. We'll get into it. 2, they had Michigan. 3, they had Texas, then Ohio State, then Florida State, then Penn State, then Washington, then Oregon, then USC, then Notre Dame. So let me get this straight. USC beats Colorado by 7 points and drops. Completely fine with. Oregon kicked the shit out of Colorado. I'm going to try not to curse so much on here. Kicked the absolute snot out of Colorado for 4 quarters, and Notre Dame. USC lets them come back in the fourth quarter. Doesn't score a point in the fourth quarter and lets them come back. Completely agree with it. However, Georgia beats Auburn by 7 points. Auburn, who has done nothing this year. Auburn, who is a much worse team than Colorado. And Georgia doesn't move. Oh, and by the way, South Carolina, in which I said in my prediction video, if South Carolina can keep it within 10 on Tennessee, I won't go as hard and I'll get off the South Carolina topic, but they got demolished by Tennessee. They were demolished by Tennessee. South Carolina has played 3 ranked opponents. 2 of them they were completely manhandled by, and the other one, in Georgia, they only got beat by 10. Why is Georgia the number 1 team in the country? There's no reason they should be. They haven't earned that. And a lot of Georgia fans want to come out here. Well, we're back-to-back champions. It is the list of the 2023-2024 season. And it is post-preseason. Stop fucking coping. How the list should be? I would put Georgia at 3. Just to throw them a bone, because I know the NCAA gets so horny. Oh, it's an SEC matchup. The SEC is bad. The SEC is bad this year. There is one team in the SEC. No, there's no teams in the SEC that are competing for a national title this year. Georgia's offense is bad. If you take Brock Bowers out of that offense, they have nothing. They have nothing. Their offensive line is above average. Their quarterback is fine. Their receivers are fine. And Brock Bowers is one of the greatest tight end prospects we've ever seen. You take Brock Bowers out of that, they are so average, it's ridiculous. All these teams struggle against lesser opponents and they drop. Even if they win, they drop. Even if they win by 20, like in Ohio State's case, they drop. But Georgia struggles at home against the South Carolina team that was picked apart and demolished for 4 quarters by Tennessee and by North Carolina, and they don't move. Oh, they're back-to-back champions. Fuck off. Golly. I'm going to get off this before I have a hernia or something, dude. What I want to talk about last in college football is Washington. If Washington wins out, not only are they making the national championship, they should be the number 1 ranked team in the country, point blank, period. If they go these next 4 games and they're not the number 1 team in the country, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. You know why? I believe they have a bye week next week, or they have a bye week in the next 4 weeks. But their next 4 games are Oregon, Arizona State and Stanford, which they should win easily, USC, Utah, or that's their 4 games, right? Oregon, Arizona State, Stanford, and USC. And their last 3 games, Utah, Oregon State, and Washington State. These boys are being put through the ringer. These boys are, if they stay undefeated, if they win out, they will have the best case for the number 1 team in the country by far. By far. And this is how a powerhouse Power 5 team schedule should look. Yeah, you have the weaker teams because you have to play them because they're in the Pac-12. But outside of the teams you absolutely have to play, you still have teams that are phenomenal, right? Might be just talking out of my ass. And I might just be looking at this through, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of their last 8 games are all ranked opponents for now. Or all ranked opponents. Yeah, all those guys should stay ranked. Outside of maybe Utah. If Utah drops a couple games before Cam Rising can come back. But 6 of their last 8 opponents are ranked. That is a tremendous schedule, and I hope they come out of it, and I believe they can come out of it because they have a good defense and they have a phenomenal offense. But that's all in college football that happened this past weekend. So let's go straight into what happened in the NFL this weekend. And I have a lot of notes for 4 of the early games, and the late games I just have a couple sentences because most of what happened in the late games was just boring. So, let's get right into what I predicted was the game of the week. Didn't really turn out that way. It turned out in a 28-point blowout between the Dolphins and between the Bills. Josh Allen was phenomenal. 21-25, 320 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 rushing 158.3 rating, and most importantly, no turnovers. Josh Allen had a game with no turnovers. And Stephon Diggs went off too. 6 receptions, 120 yards, 3 touchdowns. Their offense looked phenomenal against a division rival in Buffalo. Now, I still don't trust the Bills. This is the early season version of the Bills, in which last season they were clear Super Bowl favorites through the first 5-6 weeks. Everybody was like, oh, this is the year the Bills are getting revenge for that Kansas City playoff matchup and yada, yada, yada. And it didn't happen. The last half of the season, they did not look anything close to what they were the first half of the season. So I'm not sold on the Bills. I don't trust the Bills yet, but they definitely looked very, very good against the Dolphins. And for the Dolphins, Devon Achane, I got to look up how to pronounce his name. This dude is for real. Now, if you remember, he rushed for over 200 yards against the Broncos, and we'll get into what's wrong with the Broncos later, but he repeated the performance. 8 carries, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This guy is for real. This guy is probably going to get the start over Raheem Mostert in a week or two. This guy is going to be a phenomenal running back. I've just put him on your map because there was a random Browns running back that ran for 200 yards in 2010. One game against the Chiefs, he ran for 236 yards, right? And he did absolutely nothing the rest of the season. And this guy just put up a great performance. Only 8 carries, and he got over 100 yards and 2 tutties. This guy's going to be great for the Dolphins. And it's good for the Dolphins because they have a phenomenal passing attack. And now they got Raheem Mostert, which is nobody you should sleep on. And now Devon Achane. A-Train. Why the past couple of weeks I talk more and my nose gets more stuffy. But the problem the Dolphins had was their defense. Their defense is just okay. Now, they couldn't tackle. There were several blown coverages. The tackling was honestly the worst part. Stephon Diggs caught, I think it was his second touchdown, and everybody was just flopping over him. He spun off 2 guys. Another guy just melted over him. And another guy just completely missed him. Poor tackling, blown coverages, and they couldn't get to Josh Allen. The Bills' offensive line is not some phenomenal unit. It's okay, but it's not some phenomenal unit, and they only got to Josh Allen twice, I believe. And most of that was because Jalen Phillips was hurt, which is the guy they have next to Bradley Chubb on the defensive line. So you can take that stat with a grain of salt. But until that defense gets fixed, they're not going to be able to hang with these elite teams. They're not going to be able to hang with elite offenses. I think they're going to be fine. I think they still have a chance to win this division. Like I said, I don't trust the Bills. The Jets don't know how to close out games and are just bad overall. And the Patriots are good enough to beat weaker teams, but not good enough to beat teams on their own level and even better than them. So I think the Dolphins should still be the favorite to win the division. It is just one game, and I think they handle the Bills when they go down to Miami later in the season. But I don't think they are Super Bowl contenders until they fix that defense. And maybe Jalen Phillips comes back and they can get to the quarterback and, tackling gets better and whatever, but that's just my 2 cents. Let's move on to the Tennessee Titans beating down the Bengals 27-3. There was only 3 points scored in the second half, and it was a field goal by the Titans. Still handled business. And here's the notes I got. The Bengals' offensive line still needs a lot of work. Joe Burrow was running for his life, and he couldn't even do that because his calf is so messed up. I want to say Orlando Brown Jr. was the guy they got from the Chiefs, and he is not playing that great. It might just be the curse of Cincinnati, in which Even if they get great offensive linemen, they're just going to come down and play poorly, kind of like the Titans do with receivers. I don't know, but the offensive line still needs a lot of work in protecting Joe Burrow, especially now when Joe Burrow is obviously hurt. He's not moving around like he used to. He can't step into his throws like he used to be able to do. And that's not saying like he'll never get back to that point. He's just playing hurt. It's like Baker when Baker's shoulder was messed up in Cleveland his last year in Cleveland. It's like he's so obviously hurt. And it's detrimental to the team, but he wants to be out there and he feels good enough to be out there, so who's going to stop him? 1-3. The Bengals are now 1-3. And that's a serious concern. 1-3 is not a good start to the season. And honestly, you should really start considering, hey, can we let Joe not play for a week or two? Maybe you go down 1-5, but Joe comes back as Joe Burrow and you just win out. You just hope that you win out. Or even if you lose 1 or 2 games, you are still winning double-digit games. I think that has to be a serious consideration right now. Because Joe's going to still keep playing hurt, and that's not going to be good for him, and that's not going to be good for the team. And that's just honest. And it's not going to be good for me, because now I got to see everybody saying, oh, Joe Burrow stole millions of dollars from the Bengals. No, he's just playing hurt. But that's about the Bengals. What do we got to say about the Titans? The Titans' offense looked really good against an okay defense. The Bengals aren't some stout, tremendous defensive unit, but they are an okay defense. And the Titans looked really, really good. Why? Derrick Henry. I've been saying it. I've been saying it for a while. Y'all have heard me say it. Derrick Henry is the motor of this offense. This offense was built around Derrick Henry. And limiting Derrick Henry to less snaps than Tyjae Spears is slaughtering the offense's potential. The offense doesn't have a lot of potential already. So taking out the motor of an already low ceiling offense is dumb. It's dumb. And what does Derrick Henry come out and do? 22 carries, 122 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, and a touchdown, and even got a passing touchdown. And Ryan Tannehill looked good outside of some dumbass throws. That interception it was either at the end of the third quarter or start of the fourth quarter where he just rolled out and chucked it into a sea of like 4 Bengals players and 2 Titans players. I saw that. He rolled out and there was no one within 5 yards of him. And he just chucked it. What are you doing? You are too old for that. But outside of that, Tannehill looks good. The offensive line still looks better. Tyjae did his thing. But everybody looked better. The offense ran smoothly because Derrick Henry was getting the ball. And they were actually worried about Derrick Henry. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. The Titans run through Derrick Henry. And that's going to be the case until we can get a better quarterback or Derrick Henry retires. That's it. And the last thing I want to say about the Titans is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. A lot of you don't know that name. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine has been asked to be our number 1 receiver because the past number 1 receivers we've had, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, Treylon Burks. God. He's been asked to step into that number 1 role, and that's just not who he is. It just isn't. He is a solid wide receiver number 3 and a low-end wide receiver number 2. But when he is in his role, he is great. He's awesome in that role. And Titans fans have severely disrespected him because we've been so disappointed with the wide receiving core. But he has played almost every game, and he's been very solid every game. We just expect, Treylon and Julio and AJ to be there the past couple of years. But he's always been there for us. He's always been solid for us. And it just makes me happy seeing him succeed because he's so overhated in this fan base. Let's move on to a bit of a surprise. And hopefully my nose won't get too bad. The Texans murdered the Steelers 30-6. And first of all, those red uniforms, those red Texans uniforms look so clean. So clean. Now, I have a lot of notes about Kenny Pickett. So I'm not going to go as hard on him as I originally planned to be, just because he's injured, and that would feel shitty. So all I'm going to say is the interception looked bad, and Kenny Pickett just isn't what the Steelers need him to be right now. And I'm asking the question to all of you. Tweet at me at JJester615, comment Jagged Boy Sports, or comment on the YouTube video that this podcast is connected to. Is the Steelers' offensive problems more Matt Canada or more Kenny Pickett? I think it's more Matt Canada. I think Kenny Pickett has the tools necessary. I think he's very smart. I think he's mobile when he needs to be. I think he has a good arm. I think he is accurate enough to be a good quarterback in this league. I just don't think he gels well with Matt Canada. I think Matt Canada is ruining Kenny Pickett, and I think Matt Canada is not doing a good job with that offense. And I think they need a better running back. I like Najee Harris. They need a better run game. They need a better offensive coordinator, and they need just a better offensive identity in general. They have talent on that offense. That offense can be good, and it's just not right now. And my first finger is being pointed to Matt Canada. And I'm not saying this because Kenny Pickett is hurt. Like, I'm not saying it just because Kenny Pickett is hurt. Matt Canada needs to go. Now, C.J. Stroud. Now, the Steelers' defense is a little overrated. If you take T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith out that defense is not good. It really needs better linebackers outside of Highsmith and T.J. Watt, and they need a better defensive back. Joey Porter looks okay. Joey Porter is definitely going to get better and definitely going to be a good corner in this league. And, of course, Minkah is on Hall of Fame trajectory. But that defense is just okay. It's just okay. But C.J. Stroud, 13 of 30. You'd want the completion percentage to be a little better. But 13 of 30, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, which makes no interceptions through the first 4 weeks. No picks at all. 111.2 rating. And then 30 points on an okay defense. You got to start questioning if the Texans are real. Now, they're 2-2. Not 4-0, not 3-1. They're 2-2. But they're a good 2-2. And C.J. Stroud is playing phenomenal. Nico Collins had a great game. Damian Pierce had a great game. Their defensive line had a great game. I believe 3-4 sacks on Kenny Pickett. The Texans could be for real. And that scares me as a Titans fan. It scares me as a Titans fan that we have the Colts with Anthony Richardson, who everybody was talking about, oh, he needs a year to grow. He's going to look awful this year, but he's going to do great. He looks phenomenal this year. He looks so good this year. Yeah, there's a couple moments where he looks bad, but everybody was expecting those couple moments to be the majority of moments. He looks phenomenal. And, of course, you got C.J. Stroud in Houston and Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. The Titans really need to make a splash at quarterback. They really need Malik Willis to figure it out, or Will Levis to be something, or we're going to be left in the dust. The Titans are just going to be left in the dust. Now, the Broncos and Bears, 31-28. Broncos come back from being 21 points down. And this game is really about Justin Fields. Justin Fields in the first half, 12 of 12, 184 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, I'm being told by a lot of Bears fans that the OC just got away from Justin Fields' playmaking, and that's why he kind of fell off a little bit in the second half. Because he ended the game 28 of 35, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, an interception, and 132.7 rating, which means in the second half he went about 16 of 32 with a little under 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He just didn't play as well in the second half. But honestly, the entire game, it was mostly his playmakers. Like he was underthrowing guys. He wasn't putting the ball where it should be. He still has a lot of questions throwing the football. Coaching is not helping. They need better coaching in Chicago. Coaching is not helping Justin Fields. But if you watch that game and you don't only look at the stats, legitimately go back and watch either the highlights of the game or figure out a way to watch the game, he's still not throwing a very good ball. I still don't trust Justin Fields as a thrower. I just don't. Now the Broncos have a problem. Yes, they came back from a 21-point deficit, but there's still problems in Denver. And you did it against the Bears. And doing it against the Bears is just not a flex. And Sean Payton wants to talk all that shit against Nathaniel Hackett, and that's the product he wants to put on the field. That's crazy. That's crazy about how you're going to talk shit about Nathaniel Hackett coaching the Denver Broncos. And then you get in there and say, like, oh, yeah, it's playoffs or bust. Oh, yeah, we're going to be this. We're not going to be those guys. And now you're 1-3, and the Broncos haven't looked good. The Broncos just have not looked good. They had winnable games, and they failed to win those games. The real story is the Broncos' defense. The Broncos' defense is 32nd this year in total defense. 32nd after being 7th last year. Why is that? My theory, you traded Bradley Chubb, and now you have no pass rush. You have no way of getting to the quarterback. Bradley Chubb was phenomenal in Denver, and when he was on Denver, the Denver's defense was one of the best in the league. Obviously, they were 7th last year. I know he got traded mid-season last year, but they were still 7th. And now they're 32nd. It's disgusting. And it comes from the Bradley Chubb trade. You got to get to the quarterback. Look at how the Steelers' defense was last year when T.J. Watt went down. You need a pass rush on defense for the defense to be good, and they don't have it. I don't know what the thought process was into getting rid of Bradley Chubb. Maybe it was a salary cap thing, but it's looking like a big, big mistake. Now, to some notes we took about the later games. Outside of the Browns-Ravens game and the Bucs-Saints game, and I do want to say, I don't have any notes about the Jets-Chiefs game. I'm going to adjust you a little bit. I watched the first quarter, and it was 17-0, and I was like, this is going to be boring, so I'm just going to turn it off. Went on a walk, went on like a 20-30-minute walk, came back, and it was like 12-17, so I was like, okay, we'll tune in, and then I fell asleep because I got an hour of sleep yesterday before I fell asleep. So I don't have a lot of notes about the Jets and Chiefs. I know there's some controversial calls at the end, and everybody thinking that, the referees being bad at their job means the NFL is rigged. But I don't have the headspace to get into that. So no notes about the Jets and Chiefs outside of maybe the Jets defense is still really good and the Chiefs are still trying to find their offensive identity without Eric Bieniemy. That's it. Oh, and also, guys, did you hear that Taylor Swift goes to Chiefs games and that Taylor Swift is at the Chiefs game? Did you realize that? Did you hear it? God, that's so annoying. So we'll touch on Bucs Saints first. Bucs are the best team in the NFC South, by far. Their defense looks good. Baker's playing good. Against great teams, they're not going to do that well. We saw that when they went against the Eagles. But they're by far and away the best team in the NFC South. The Saints offense is bad. The Saints offense is just straight up bad. I was thinking, okay, the Titans have a good defense. So when they played the Titans, I was like, the Titans have a good defense, and it's Derek Carr first getting in there. I expect them not to look good, but they have kept up not looking good the rest of the year, pretty much. Through the first 4 weeks, the Saints offense does not look good, and they have talent. Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Michael Thomas is healthy. They have talent. The offensive line worries me, especially Trevor Penning. Trevor Penning is getting bitched. I said I would curse less, and I think this is the podcast I've cursed the most on. Trevor Penning is getting killed every week. And as much as I love to see it, I still hate it because I picked them to win the NFC South, and I picked them as Super Bowl dark horses because I'm a Derek Carr guy. But Derek Carr is not playing well. The Saints' offense is not playing well. And when the offense isn't playing well, that great defense you have is forced to stay on the field, and now they don't look as good because they're tired. So the Bucs should be clear NFC South favorites. Last week I was on the Falcons, but with the way the Falcons played against the Jaguars in London, I'm off that train. The Falcons have something building there. But the Bucs right now should be favorites in the NFC South. And by the way, did y'all watch the Toy Story broadcast? It looks like an arcade game. And I was like, this is stupid. Why are they doing this? But then I was scrolling on TikTok, and there was a couple people that their kids were just glued to the screen watching it. So, hey, can't really say anything about it. Now, the only real thing I have to say about the Ravens and the Browns game is, A, DTR did not look ready. Everybody was hyping up DTR, saying he was going to take Deshaun Watson's spot after he played well in the preseason. And can we finally stop that? Can we stop acting like the preseason is going to put up real stats for good football players? Can we stop? It's like when Justin Fields had like 3 throws where he threw for like an average of 2 yards, and his receivers took it 50 yards down the field, where he had a stat line of like 2 touchdowns for like 184 yards, and he was like 4-4, right? And everybody's like, oh, Justin Fields can throw the ball now. Oh, He's throwing screen passes and swing passes and 5-yard slants. That's it. Can we stop acting like good football players or good stats in the preseason translate to, oh, this guy's amazing now? DTR, I think, has the tools to be a very good quarterback. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, for those who don't know what DTR stands for. I think he has the tools to be a good quarterback, but he's obviously not ready. And he was thrown against a good Ravens defense. So don't be too hard on him. I already saw some idiots saying he doesn't belong in the NFL and we should move on immediately. You're an idiot. It's his first start ever in the NFL. He's not going to look good. That's just how it goes. And Lamar played phenomenal. Lamar looked like 2019 Lamar Jackson against a very, very good Cleveland Browns defense. The Cleveland Browns defense is the first defense in the league. Now, they played 2 of the worst offenses in the league the past couple weeks in the Steelers and the Titans. So those numbers might be inflated a little bit. But even then, their defense looks very, very good. And Lamar just picked them apart. Not only running the ball, which Lamar's always going to be phenomenal running the ball, he was making incredible throws. And if the Ravens are getting 2019 MVP Lamar Jackson, that is going to be scary for the rest of the AFC. Scary. So like I said, I don't trust the Chiefs. Dolphins don't have a great defense. Or I don't trust the Bills. Dolphins don't have a great defense. And the Chiefs look lost on offense right now. And that's their identity. If the Ravens and the Chiefs played right now, I'm taking the Ravens. 10 out of 10. Even if it's in Arrowhead in the playoffs, I'm taking the Ravens. Right now. Now for the late games, we had 2 overtime games or I believe the early games we had 2 overtime games, Philly and LA. And I believe I was going to try to make a point about overtime rules and how stupid they are, or not even how stupid they are, because I think, yeah, you should get the advantage of going on offense first, and if you score a touchdown, you win, and just play defense. I hated how everybody was like, it's not fair because both teams don't get to go on offense. Play defense. Play defense. Oh, their defense lost the game. Yeah. And if their offense came out and threw a pick six, their offense lost the game. But nobody's complaining about the defense and how not fair that is to the defense. But I bring this up because I don't think it's fair that just the playoffs. Like in the playoffs, okay, we'll have whatever. You both can go on offense. And I get like, oh, you can't have a tie in the playoffs. But even if the first team scores a touchdown, the opposing team gets the ball. And it's only for the playoffs. I don't get why you make that rule change and don't just make it the default rule. I don't get it. Khalil Mack had 6 sacks, which is insane. Mac Jones was benched after throwing 2 interceptions for Bailey Zappi yet again. And that's over. It's over for Mac Jones. The Patriots don't believe in him. And request to trade or get cut. Mac Jones is not the answer in New England. He could be somewhere else. I'm not saying completely give up on Mac Jones. I don't particularly like him. Someone asked me, would you rather have Baker or Mac Jones? I'd rather have Baker. Baker has a higher ceiling. Lower floor, to be honest. But he has a higher ceiling. And he's a better leader, in my opinion. He gets the guys fired up more. But that's just objective. I don't know why I made this about Baker. Mac Jones is not working in New England. Maybe he works somewhere else. I don't know. And the last thing I want to talk about, who the Chargers play. I completely forgot who the Chargers played. But they almost lost. And they almost lost because they were on their own 34-yard line. Up like, I think 4 points, 4 or 5 points, maybe. And it's 4th and 1. Own 34-yard line. And you go for it. And they failed. I believe they failed. Yeah, they failed. And, God, who did they play? Who did they play? Oh, my God, dude. That's going to aggravate me that I didn't write down who they played. But whoever they played threw an interception, and they got bailed out. They got absolutely bailed out. Brandon Staley got absolutely bailed out for the second week in a row where you're going for it on 4th down, deep in your own territory. Staley is that's going to come back and bite him. That is going to absolutely come back and bite him. Staley should have already been fired. If he does this and they lose a game, I wouldn't be surprised if he's fired the next afternoon. I just wouldn't be. And that's pretty much it. I'm not going to talk about fantasy because all the teams I care about that I have lost. Not a single one of my guys showed up. So we're just not going to go over me getting the shit kicked in. I'm recording this on Monday, and I'm not going over the Monday night game just because I don't think anything interesting is really going to happen in the Seahawks-Giants game. The only interesting thing that might happen is if Kenneth Walker and I'm going to say DJ Chark. Am I dumb? DK Metcalf combined for 60 points in fantasy. Because if they do, I win one of my fantasy matchups miraculously. So if that happens, Jackie Boy Sports, I'm going to make a video absolutely laughing about it. But I'll see you on Thursday for my prediction podcast on Jackie Boy's Got a Sports Show, because this is Jackie Boy's Got a Sports Show. Jackie Boy has a sports show, and you have tuned into that sports show. Y'all have a good weekend, and I will see you on Thursday. Peace.